And we're live. Good evening. Good evening. And yeah, Paul's not here, so we're going to try and run the show here. Well, he's sort of living at large in the media box there at Waikato Stadium and enjoying all the food, the free food that he'll be getting. So yeah, that's a for a Blues fan, that's a hard one to take, Steve.
Yeah, it's
Oh, good evening too, bud.
yeah, listen, they left the door open, mate, and when you leave the door open and there's only really a try in it, mate, anything can happen.
Absolutely. I think, when you look at it, probably that first half, when we go, not don't really need to talk about the first half too much because not really exactly great footy in that first half from either side. If anything, the Chiefs probably had the better opportunities, even though the Blues went in 7-0 at half time.
Yeah, well, exactly. They probably should have been ahead a little bit further in terms of the amount of ball and field position, but you keep leaving that door open. And I suppose the real surprise to me is everybody was expecting a dominant Blues scrum, but it didn't happen, Ashwin. Full
No,
credit
no.
to the Chiefs. I mean to say, probably the guy they should all be patting on the back is their scrum coach, Nick White, who's done a
Absolutely.
fantastic job.
No, no, no. Look, we're just on the scrum side. I mean, like even like you sort of thought, okay, they've paired up in the scrum, okay, and in fact, you could say they were actually probably a little bit dominant in the scrum. They got a couple of, well, at least one scrum penalty out of it. The Chiefs did, and even when in the second half, jumping to the second half, all over the place. But even when Carl and Offa came on, the Chiefs scrum didn't really buckle. It wasn't until the reserves came on late in the game.
No, it's almost like they put all their effort into their scrummaging against the Crusaders 6 days ago, and they've left absolutely nothing in the tank. I can't quite put my finger on it. Obviously, there were a couple of changes at
Yep.
half time, and you would have expected a lot better with your more two senior All Blacks that came onto the paddock. But
Paddock as
in
well.
reality,
Yeah.
that dominance didn't happen.
I think looking at the first half for the Chiefs, I think a player that has been talked up big time through Mitre 10 and Super Rugby and really hasn't delivered for the first time tonight, and that's Quinn Tupaia. I think his first half was something that we haven't really seen at any level. That he was there.
Oh, easily his best game of the campaign. You've got to say, he certainly.
I'd say of his career.
Yeah, he really bullied his way in that midfield tonight. Not that I'm saying that the likes of beg your pardon, Rieko Ioane was bad in attack. He was very good, but there were times he did fall off the tackle, just going a little bit too high, in my opinion.
Yep, right. And I suppose just the Blues basically scoring that one try. Probably Talia should have possibly done a little bit better with getting bundled out in the corner. Do you think?
Oh yeah, listen. There were opportunities that the Blues will look back and it'll probably grate with them a little bit. But I'm saying that I'm a great believer. If you know you're in a tight contest, scoreboard pressure is a wonderful thing. And
Yep.
if you have to basically score them in multiples of three, then so be it. Even right near the end, where they could have stretched it out to 7 points, they decided to kick for the corner. But I don't think I think the Blues might have had a few cracks with a line-out drive, and to be honest, it wasn't really happening for them. So, man, you got to give credit on this night of all nights to the Chief. When you basically look at their middle row, they're not the biggest through the middle row. They're missing both of their what you might term their two starting locks and Tupu Vai and also Josh Lord. So all of a sudden they've got two guys doing the job for them, and that was the impressive thing. They scrummaged really well.
They did. Exactly. I mean, you would have thought at that start with the starting lineup. I mean, like even if the props for the Chiefs were going to, this is pre-game, right, are going to stand up. There's there's nothing in behind them. There's a couple of raw bone locks that really haven't spent a lot of time at this level. So you just didn't pick it for that to be their scrum dominance. I think when we look at the Blues with the scrum, I think going back to last week and then this week, they're just putting too many eggs in that scrum basket.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, I asked the question: Are they actually getting their pack balance right? I mean to say, I know Hoskins Sotutu and Akira Ioane bring so much in terms of go forward and skill and ball in hand, but boy, all of a sudden you're landlocked in terms of line-out options, and their only line-out option was using Josh Goodhue near the back of the line-out. On the odd occasion, they shifted Hosking Satutu up the line-out, got ball. Even somebody like Josh for Northern is more of a front of the line-out jumper than he is a middle. Of course, Patrick Tuipulotu very rarely used, but if you have got somebody like a Tom Robinson, man, you've got that ability to move a guy up in the line-out and just create a bit of confusion from a defensive point of view.
In saying all that, obviously with the first half issues around set piece for both sides, I thought the Chiefs actually created a lot more opportunities in terms of broken play in the first half, and it was probably just a bit of young exuberance that really sort of stymied their chances. Obviously, the real obvious one was when I think it was Caleb Trask tried that one-hand flick out to Stevenson on the wing that went forward.
Yeah, you did right. One of the differences, in my opinion, while the Chiefs weren't always accurate, was just the ball movement, the speed and ball movement, and the accuracy of the long pass. You saw in the first half the Blues with some long passes that were just, to be honest, woeful. Some of them, even hitting ground before they're hitting the players. And on a lot of occasions, I was watching. It was the left. That we all know that the easiest pass is the right to left pass. Hardest part is the left to right pass. And there's an issue with a few of the Blues players with that left to right pass. So
having problems turning left on the catwalk.
Yeah, exactly. Guys like Caleb Clark need space on the outside so he can get one-on-one. Never really got that opportunities tonight. We saw Rico Ioane make a really good break. And I looked around, where's the support? And there was just nobody on his shoulder. Now, is that up to him to maybe not isolate himself from the support and wait till a runner can get to him? He had, if he'd waited, he had Caleb Clark on his left shoulder, admittedly a little bit behind the plane, but I guess that's where a good centre starts to figure out how to use those little networks around
options. Them. Well, what are you're running downfield, you're sort of isolated. What are your options? What are you going to do? What's wrong with, you've got the pace outside, even the kick ahead, so that then you can basically, even if the Chiefs get that ball, they're under pressure, and all you're going to get is a clearing kick.
You buy yourself, Ashwin, you buy yourself some time. That's what the really, really good top end players do when they make breaks. They will buy time until a support player can get to them, or they just assess those opportunities really, really early in the piece. Mate, once again, I look at that final result, and it's not as if the Blues can complain. They left that door open, and the Chiefs on the night were good enough to take it.
Oh, look, you said it, I said it last night. If a Super Rugby team, the better team, doesn't turn up, then any team can knock over, and that includes the Crusaders as well. They just keep turning up. That's the difference. The thing is that with the Blues, they didn't turn up tonight.
No, but
that's simple as that. You look at the error rate.
At some stage in that match, they should have turned up. I mean to say,
and
some real horrible line-out things. I can recall it going through Goodhue's hands a couple of times, and yet he had a reasonably good half. Put in about 2 or 3 really good shots and carries. But boy, looking forward, I think this team, you've got to have that set piece line out correct, and you could arguably say that maybe it was the Chiefs' inaccuracy at line out that were keeping the Blues.
And some question marks. Absolutely. And some question marks around the leadership in the Blues again. Really, something that we sort of think after last year, maybe there would have been, sorted. But reality is that there was only one way the Chiefs were going to win that game, and that was by throwing it around. And the conversation wasn't there to sort that side of things out.
Oh, mate, exactly. And boy, what I was going to say. A week's a long time in rugby. You get that one elusive win, and boy, the confidence it gives you just to actually stay in the fight does wonders. I've got to be honest. I'm marveling at their performance simply because they don't have their 2 mainstream locks, and there was talk at the beginning of the season that they didn't have a kettle. They have the kettle that they've had in the past, but man, they just stayed in the fight.
Oh, look, I think, and that's why it's disappointing. With the Blues, like when you look at that first half in particular, it was like what you've talked about. the accuracy of the play, the passing. You're in a compromised position yourself, and you're passing to a guy that's back behind the play in a static position. No, it's just crazy sort of play there, and really, I felt it just played into the Chiefs' hands. And the other thing is, again, if it's not working, you should have been using that breeze to kick down into the corners, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
When things aren't working.
Yeah, and you need some of you need a lot of your senior players to stand up. And once again, if I look through that Blues performance, well, my man of the match for the Blues is easy to pick out because I thought Dalton Papali was
by a long way.
Was just absolutely next level tonight, and he was their best. He was probably their best by daylight, because after that I'm sort of scratching around to find who was probably a consistent performer. Probably Rico Ioane was pretty consistent. Akira started the match really poorly. I don't know what's gone on in the last couple of weeks, but just seems to have taken
a step back. Yeah. Look. I would actually say. I mean, Cornflake will accuse us of focusing on the Blues again, but
and that's who we're talking about.
Yeah. there's a lack of cohesion in that back row. I think, and you alluded to it in terms of the balance of the of the forwards. There's a lack of cohesion in the within that back row and how they operate. It's not really going the way. It's not connecting. There's something missing.
Yeah. I don't disagree with it. I know Harry Plummer. This is his first year as a second five, and he's to be fair, he's made a good fist of it, but I don't think they've quite got it correct there. If you look at the very, very good sides, that you have those really good combinations that know each other inside out. You can just see why was I cheering for the Chiefs, probably to annoy us nocturnal, right? So that it's working.
Well,
really.
I was going to say, well, they were. I mean, like, to be fair, I mean, like, you look at that, as mentioned in the commentary on TV anyway, as the fact is that that the Chiefs were, massively underdogs at the TAB, right? Or and so you usually go for the underdog if you're not supporting one of the sides, don't you? So I'm not surprised.
I know when we were doing the review of last night's rugby, and I said to Paul, man, you just never know in this game. You and I have both been around this game for a very, very long time to know that nothing is a given, especially New Zealand sides. And boy, we know that our next door neighbours an hour and a half down the road love nothing better than
well, that's the stupid thing, I mean, like, if the Blues have taken this lightly, they shouldn't have. It's just the number of times that they've gone into games against the Chiefs as favourites and they just getting tipped over and tipped over and tipped. They happened again today. As a fact is that you need to know you're going down State Highway 1. It's never going to be an easy game. The Chiefs could have picked up the record last week and it still wouldn't have been an easy game this week.
Exactly, because they would have been absolutely looking for that win. But boy, let's give a bit of credit.
Chiefs.
I know we focused a lot on the Blues, but let's give a bit of credit to the Chiefs as well, especially their skipper Sam Cane. He comes under a lot of pressure. He gets a lot of pressure from a lot of quarters. But man, to me that's 2 weeks in a row that he stood up. Admittedly, come up with a bit of a knock, but. Man.
Yeah, I suppose what you could say, he's not the traditional seven in what we think of a seven, right? He's more of that defensive seven. But if he's doing that defensive work, that means your number 8 and your blind side can get out and do what Jacobson did, especially in that last minute of the game, and get out there and do a different role. And that's that link play in particular.
Oh, yeah. And, you talk about senior players standing up tonight. Kane stood up. Takiaho, despite some few indifferent throws into the line-out, was very, very good with ball in hand to play. Dave DMAC at the back. We've already mentioned 4 guys there, and there was a couple of others that that were consistent performance as well. I thought Akoi was very good. A couple of little issues at kickoff time, but just contests everything, and they just work their butt off.
I don't. Again, with the commentary on TV, they sort of mention that kickoff time with Akoi. I don't think that's not his fault. That's the fact that his lifters not actually going with him, right? And the fact is that he's getting into the right part of the field to get get to that ball? Where are his lifters to actually do the work? So
Ver-
I think it's a bit hard to pin that on him. I think he had a fantastic game all round, really.
yeah,
Again, such a young kid.
yeah. Oh, very, 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 very much so. I mean to say, Isaac mentions most of the names that we've said as well, but one of us that
Yep.
would be remiss not to mention is Aiden Ross on
Yep.
that on that loose head side of the scrum. Boy, that's where the pressure was coming through. Was on the was
Well,
loose head on tight head.
Well, let's. I mean, like, yeah, fair enough to point out Aiden Ross, but if you look at Tarville and Aiden Ross, they went up against basically 4 All Blacks, because and you got to remember they went about 60 minutes, whereas the Blues front row basically got subbed at half time, so they only did 40 minutes each. So they actually did a longer shift and probably outmuscled both pairs.
Hey, but isn't it refreshing to be actually talking about a game, and we haven't really had to mention the officials
No.
tonight?
Oh, look, I mean, I thought it was a bit harsh on the line out drive that was reversed. I mean, like, that's a maul. That happens in every single maul. So that's but at the end of the day, I still don't think the Blues would have deserved. Although there was one on the final hooter sort of thing, the Blues didn't deserve to win because they that first 40 there was a. Yeah, excuse me, piss poor performance by them. It's really just, for the level of play that they've been playing, that it was absolutely rubbish from them. And so I don't think they deserved it. And I think congratulations to the Chiefs on picking up the win.
Oh, listen, I basically drove back an hour from Wellsford after watching the start of the Tyre Power first day of the Northland Club season today, and to sort of run back to try and catch that first half. Boy, man alive, I was wondering what I hope I just didn't get any tickets on the way back, Ashwin.
Just through that tunnel.
Yeah, just through that tunnel.
There's always that camera on the other side of the tunnel. Though,
Yes, I know. 50Ks, I watch that, people. Gets a lot of people. Really not much more you can say. I mean, I thought.
No, not really. And Grant, I mean, I think, I think going right back up to the top and sort of like pretty bad first half, and it was that last 20 was, you went from rocks to diamonds.
Yeah,
I think it sort of papered over the cracks of a pretty average game in that sort of last 20, 30 minutes.
Yep. They certainly do. Well, listen, one guy I want to touch upon because he always adds something off the bench is Tom Robinson. God, he brings a lot of energy. Just, and you want a bit of fizz. You spoke about the Blues not starting well, man. All you need is a couple of guys who just start the game with a bit of fizz. You could see that from Dalton Papali'i, but boy, he needed some mates. He really needed some mates around him. To be brutally honest, some of the performances of our front rowers they all looked like they were a bit stuck in the mud. This week.
Yeah. Oh, but I've had a fear of that. Even like going back to the first game against the Hurricanes, and then against the Crusaders, in terms of you saw that dominance within the set piece with the scrum, but they're not really mobile forwards. Off is probably the most mobile of the lot. They don't really offer much with the ball in hand. Would that be fair to say? We can talk about a big pack that we bring to the ballpark, but that's all well and good. But the game's not just a scrum, and even when when the ball leaves the scrum, it's free flowing game that you have to get involved in.
Yeah, if you look at some of the better ball carrying props around, Taniela Tupou from the Reds, boy, what he brings to the table is scrumming and some. Whether it's when he carries, boy, there's a lot of impact, but he's also got those beautiful soft skills as well. That is a problem for the Blues. Do they freshen it up? The issue that they've got now at hooker, they're probably going to have to stick with Tulai, with Eklund out of commission for
another 2 weeks.
Another 2 weeks or so, and once again he was missed tonight. No real energy
off the bench.
Off the bench.
Episai's not really the impact player. And in fact, all we were hoping was that he came on and he could throw the ball straight into the lineouts because he struggled with that.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I mean, I think it'd be a bit remiss of us not to talk about the goal, the golden one in this game. Last night it was Geordie Barrett. Tonight, McKenzie.
Yeah. Oh,
brought what we
Yeah.
expect from him, what we've seen, what sort of
Oh,
missing in the last year, and we've seen it in the last 2 games from him.
yeah. When you give him this sort of space, he's he's some player. His ability to beat guys, and listen, in that first sort of 15, 20 minutes, there was absolutely no fear. If there was half a chance to attack, and he saw an opportunity. And that's what I actually do like about Damian McKenzie. He sees opportunities that other players don't always see. Even right at the end when the Blues were in front, there was a crossfield kick. Okay, the activation wasn't quite accurate, but the idea was right. And just the fact this guy is just thinking at 100 mile an hour.
To me, that highlights one thing though, and within the Blues lineup, and from last week and this week, and any team that obviously the Hurricanes with Geordie at the back, but then you got the Highlanders will have a 10 and Josh Ioane up front, but they've got playmakers that see things and they manipulate the game, and that the Blues don't have anybody that manipulates the situation and creates something or a gap or whatever. They're relying on somebody just to bust or Ioane's speed on the outside. And the reality is most defenses are generally good enough to shut down a guy with speed on the outside. The time that Ioane did make the break, it was against Sam Cane, a forward.
But what we need is that creativity that gets him on the outside of a man. We don't want him where he has to go looking for mismatches. We want him to be able to get on the outside of his man and have options, where people were sweating on him. But boy, there were times it was heart and mouth stuff where passes that were just almost lobbed. And it's not a great pass when the receiver is actually waiting
for the ball.
Absolutely waiting for the pass. And you probably a good example of that was Harry Plummer going through the legs. Well, quite frankly, I personally think he should have been looking to at least, he's a big guy, should have taken it first, taken the impact.
To me, it's actually catch it backwards pass. That one, when I was watching it, it's catch it backwards. So you got the back to the tackler. Yeah, sure, you're going to get whacked in the back, but it should give you a chance to offload to the outside. So it's a higher percentage play than between the legs.
Absolutely, and that also says the pass was going low as well. So we might be being a bit harsh on Harry. The pass may have been a bit low, and there wasn't a lot he could do about it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, there's a couple other things we could go over it, but I mean, at the end of the day, there's not much more to say. I mean, and really, congratulations to the Chiefs. They stuck in the game all the way along. They were basically, even though they did get ahead at one point, they were chasing the game most of the time, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, but they hung in there. When it's a 4-point game, that door is open. Once again, the Blues will look back at all the opportunities to score points. If they had just taken one of those points, one of those threes in the first half, they would have been going into they would have been 7 points ahead, and instead of kicking to the corner, they could have kicked another goal to go 10 points ahead, and the game is as good as dusted. But boy, we've seen it's been a day of complete weird stuff. I mean, so I can think back to about 12 hours ago, or less than 12 hours, watching Scotland and France. And France, all they had to do was kick the ball out, because scoring that bonus try was never going to win them the championship. But the fullback decided to keep the ball alive. Ball turned over, and 21 phases later, Scotland takes the victory. And who would have, if you were a brave man and you picked Scotland and the Chiefs as a combo, I would have thought you were on drugs.
Hey, I mean, apart from hardcore Chiefs supporters, I think most people would have thought Chiefs winning tonight, you'd got to be on drugs.
Yeah.
So that's yep.
Yeah. I can't wait for Paul tomorrow night, because he just was really quite nonchalant about it. No. Why don't you Blues have confidence? This is the Blues we're talking about. It's not the Crusaders. It's the freaking Blues. Now,
and look at. Yeah, and that's what they need to learn, is the fact is that they need to go out there and win ugly, and they haven't learned to win ugly. That game tonight, they need to win ugly, and they didn't achieve it.
No, just not accurate enough, and just really at the end of the day, not smart enough.
I was just going to say, I mean, like one thing, like the last three that the Blues could have taken, I actually agreed with going for the corner. They'd got the momentum up, and in the way that Terry Black he missed sort of two kicks, which were probably a bit easier than that one was going to be. So I think the option to go to the corner was the right option. What it highlights is that they're really out. They're attacking maul from lineouts is struggling. It struggled last week, and it struggled again this week.
The other thing I suppose is sort of worth mentioning is also the performance of Finlay Christie. I thought he was pretty, I thought he was reasonably tidy tonight. But I have to ask the question: Is Jonathan Ruri the sort of player you want coming off the bench? Like he did.
Yeah, but it's a hard. That's a hard one. I mean, I know your feelings on Jonathan Ruru, Steve. But I mean, like tonight's game, he sort of like he did come on and add spark to that, or got things going. He got them going a bit more direct than what they were. They're going a bit too lateral. And when Ruru came on, definitely started to go a bit more direct. I mean, I alluded to the fact is that the back line's not creating enough. And if you go back to we keep harking back to last week's game. But when you sit in the West End, you see the problem that the Blues have. They go wide straight away. And the defence is set. You've got to go forward before you can go wide. Otherwise, it's a league defence that easily shuts you down.
Yeah, even if you've got a midfielder that's direct, set something up.
Yeah. Here's one for you, Steve. The man you want to see. The man you want to see in the number 9 jersey.
Well, I don't know how he's gone from number 1 a year ago, and when pre Super Rugby COVID, to basically not even being good enough to make the 23 a very good season for Northland last year. He's probably, in terms of a distributor and high kick, probably got the best out of the 3 halfbacks. I've got absolutely no idea. Jordan, I ran into his father on Monday, just out of the blue, running, and even his dad's got absolutely no idea why he's out of the frame. So he's a little disillusioned.
Look, I mean, if you're saying that he's got a good kicking game, that's where one of the areas that the Blues are definitely struggling. Their kicking game is not good enough. They need to basically, I don't know, if you're going to use that as an attacking ploy, it doesn't seem to be working well. You better go in there and practice it a bit more, because that's not working for you.
Anyway, guys.
Yep.
I think
that's about it. Wrap it up. Yeah.
Yep.
Congratulations to the Chiefs, and I suppose we'll see the Reds and the Waratahs, or we're going to get some Zeds.
It's been a lot. It's been a long day. I'll try and put myself through the pain of it all, but maybe
we'll see how it goes. And you'll hear us talking about that game tomorrow night when we review all the games from Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby Gold from this weekend, and we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later.